What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pardon the POV. I am back with Crispy the Rizzler. We missed him last week. He was for the elephants. I know he was doing something over he was somewhere doing something. How are you, man?
Good. It's been fun times as of late. Yeah, it's been good.
Fun times as of late. That's because Arsenal is #1 and still #1.
That's right.
Premier League.
That's right. It's a good time.
Okay, well, we'll stand over to Robert and tell us. We're gonna do the usual. We'll be asked questions. We'll have a quick preview of those, and then we will be yes or no, agree or disagree, and then we will talk about what we think afterwards. So let's get started, Robert.
Got a great question here. Here's some context. There's a debate brewing in sales leadership circles about what a VP of sales is actually responsible for. One side, you're here to hit the number, period. Other side, your primary role is to be a steward of capital, so managing resources, territory design, ROI across the sales org. Force Management's 2026 research shows VPs are now spending 40% more time on resource allocation than actual pipeline management. Here's the question. The primary role of a VP of sales is to be a steward of capital. Agree or disagree? 1, 2, 3.
Disagree.
Yeah.
Wow. We'll go Crispy first.
Yeah. I think about the outcome of a VP of sales in the sense of what you're measured on. And it's more like you're never measured on capital allocation or like being a steward of capital. You're measured on like revenue purely. And I think a big part of that is how much deal flow have you generated? How much like revenue have you actually generated? And that's kind of your only KPI as a VP of sales, sales manager, stuff like that.
Love it. Yeah. And you had time left. Matt, go ahead.
This question seems like it was written by someone trying to sell me sales territory management software. Because that is not what sales reps, that's not what a VP of sales does. The VP of sales has a number, and they help you hit that number, or they don't hit you that number. And it may involve territories, it may involve commissions, and you need to understand those and be good at it. That at the end of the day, you could be terrible, and all that could be done poorly, and you hit your number, and you're still standing. And that's the reality of being a VP of sales. So
excellent. Both of you are
Rizzler.
Wow, agreed. It can only get worse from here. Question 2. AI SDRs, should you still be worried or not? I have a response. So Monday.com just published research showing AI SDRs can handle 1,000+ contacts per day versus a human's 50 to 100. The case study documented that a single AI agent replaced the output of 10 human SDRs. There you go. A Crispy can replace the same output. But before you panic, 83% of sales teams using AI saw revenue growth, and the data shows it's augmentation, not replacement. Multiple sources show only 7% of organizations report AI being fully scaled across their enterprise. Here's the question. If you're an SDR or BDR today, should you be actively worried about losing your job to AI by 2028? Yes or no? 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
No.
Matt?
Yeah, should if I'm SDR or BDR, should I be actively worrying about losing my job to AI? The answer is no. You should be actively worrying about losing your job to the fact you're not booking meetings. So we talk about augmentation. Is it like, should you be putting AI into your workflow and understand like AI is best used for research and prioritization, for gathering intent, and for helping you like write email, like thinking about who you're writing emails to and doing it really fast. Everyone, and this is the issue, they're going to follow people off a cliff, and they're going to do a bunch of AI stuff, and being able to be more human is what matters. So the question you're going to lose your job to the SDR that's more human than you and faster than you.
You got gonged, but pretty good response. Crispy?
Yeah, I think that with the integration of AI by 2028, I think there will be less SDRs out there in the world because they're going to replace a lot of the fundamental reasons you have SDRs. So I think you'll lose your job in the sense of if you're not the cream of the crop and top of the list, then you will get replaced by AI, is my standpoint.
Excellent. Want to clarify any further? What would make them the cream of the crop?
If you're hitting your numbers, basically, like that's what I agree with Bolian. If you hit your numbers, then like you're not going to get replaced by AI because AI can't replace you as an SDR and hit your quota consistently time and time again.
I think Crispy and I
so-
agree on these points. By the way, like I think it is the SDR that
Yeah.
books meetings is the SDR that wins, and the SDR that doesn't loses. So you
Yeah,
will lose people that book. Yeah.
I'll say this: the 10 SDRs that are getting replaced are the bad ones, not the good ones. That's how I feel about it.
And the good ones will outperform the bad ones, and the bad ones even look even worse. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
In this.
Love it. Number 3, NRR, the new North Star? Question mark. According to Force Management, net recurring revenue is now a top priority for 73% of executive sales leaders, up from barely being tracked a few years ago. Gartner data backs this up. Here's the tension. If your comp plan still rewards new logo acquisition over expansion, your sellers aren't really going to give a crap about NER. And if customer success owns renewals, why is this the sales leader's problem? Question is this: sales leadership should own NRR as their primary metric. Agree or disagree? 1, 2, 3.
Disagree.
Yeah.
Crispy, you're up again.
Man, owning that as your primary metric I think it changes the way that you sell massively. And I think that you want to focus more on like the new logo acquisition as a sales team, because that's where you go and hunt and kill. You're not worried about building the longest term relationship as part of the sales process. That's like a nice to have, but I wouldn't make that the core thing or the primary metric that sales leadership should be worried about. I think this is where customer success fits into this. And there's this like kind of cycle that evolves between CS and sales, where I think if you have sales manage that entire process, you're going to have.
Well done. Matt?
I just got gonged at the very beginning.
Gonged again.
Yeah, it's sales. Gosh, net revenue retention is the count of. I think is the count of how much more revenue have we gained versus that we've churned. It's both net revenue and expansion minus churn. So sales doesn't. This is like. Should the company and should the executive staff be measured by net revenue retention? Yes, because it's the health of the business. And so, yes, executives should be thinking about net revenue retention, which is increase in net new logos, increase in expansion across your current customer base, and a decrease in churn. But the sales leadership has one of those pillars, net new, and it should be the primary metric of what they're thinking about. The rest are secondary, tertiary. They do affect them, but they are not the primary. And if you do that, I'm all stop there. You get.
I like that better than the gong.
You threatened my life if I didn't cut y'all off more, so it's your problem.
I like this. Yes.
Question 4. Talked about this before, but forecasting, is it a math problem or a trust problem? O'Cleary reports 65% of revenue leaders say unreliable forecast data is a, quote, major source of revenue loss. No shit. Force Management calls the solution standardized qualification benchmarks, a strong management operating rhythm, and a culture of accountability. Sales ops teams know the truth. Your CRM data is garbage. Your reps sandbag, and your managers can't have honest conversations about deal risk. So which is it? Question is this: bad forecasts are primarily a data quality problem. Yes or no? 3, 2, 1.
No.
Yes.
Matt, why?
I think this question was trying to position of is it a culture problem? Is it a data problem? And if you have the data, and I say data, I mean the communication between whether I'm sending a LinkedIn request or I'm sending an email and all the data that goes in, the SOW has been sent, etc. You can actually start to get predictable in your forecast. And so it's fundamentally the ability to forecast has always been, always will be a data problem. Even how humans think about and put in the information. And it's a data problem when they think or feel a certain way. And so in many ways, you just need to get data into the system. And this is where AI is really good. Once you have the data and the context inside of a deal, you can then put AI and they can get rid of, and then it's a data problem. So, wow. Woo!
Had to switch it up a little bit. Crispy.
Yeah, I don't think it's a data quality problem at all. I think that the way that most people forecast is flawed because they forecast based upon gut feeling, and the reps' optimism in terms of what exists on the deal. I think that the correct way to forecast is actually to kind of do gap analysis forecasting, which is what does not exist to make this deal complete. And that's the way you should do it, because that means that there's no sandbagging. You're doing full qualification. You can quantify it directly, and you're not optimistically forecasting on feelings or like lack of trust. Data quality is like not something that I think affects forecast all that much compared to the sandbagging and the hopeful attitudes of sales reps. I think that's way more impactful in bad forecasting than poor data quality.
I don't know if y'all heard my cork gun sound effect, but that was 45. Well done on both. Here's the next question, which you'll both love. This is more cognitive behavioral than sales, but there's a good tie-in. Forgetting curve dilemma. Ebbinghaus's research, hopefully you're familiar with this by now, from 1885 has been proven time and time again. Humans forget 50 to 70% of new information within 24 hours without reinforcement. At 1 week, you remember just 20%. Modern studies have now confirmed and proven this. Participants retain just 10 to 20% of information from traditional training after 3 months. So here, how does this apply to you? Your sales team just completed a 3-day product training, and by Friday, they'll have forgotten half of it. By next Tuesday, 80% is gone, and you just spent $50,000 on that program. The question is this: multi-day training events are a waste of money because of this forgetting curve. Agree or disagree? 3, 2, 1.
Agree.
I didn't hear what Crispy said, but he's going second anyway. Matt, go ahead.
Did I go first last time? I agree. The is $50,000 to do training and getting everybody together is a lot of time spent together. And there's a forgetting curve where you forget all the things. There's much better use of time and resources for the team. And there's a different way to train. I think that we're under this false narrative where knowing more means we'll do better. And my mom knows that's not true. I know better to do a lot of things, and I still stayed out every night and ate, drink Monsters and play video games all night. I knew better. I didn't do better. Like they need a different way of thinking about doing better at a behavior level, not just giving people more information.
Love that. Shout out to Deb. Crispy.
Yeah, it's like, this is why I kind of have issues with like in-person training, classroom training, stuff like that. The knowledge is very siloed and is only emphasized at that point in time and not conducted in the place and area or time when it matters. And so those big fancy workshops, like SKO is a great example. SKO is more of like a feel-good rally of let's all see each other and whatnot. But the content, the things that you actually talk about and the lessons learned and the instructions are forgotten on the plane ride home.
Let's go to the next question. And if one of you doesn't work in a super plug, I'm removing you from the call. Number 6, the distraction tax. 2025 research shows the average employee loses focus every 3 minutes. Wait, what? Somebody's outside my house. Just kidding. Gloria Mark from UC Irvine found attention on a single screen dropped from 2.5 minutes to just 47 seconds today. For sales teams, this means Slack messages, CRM notifications, email alerts, phone calls, blah, 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 blah. The RevOps problem is this. You're trying to maintain forecast accuracy and selling activities while reps are being interrupted every 4 minutes. Good luck. Question is this: constant connectivity tools like Slack are destroying sales productivity. Agree or disagree? 3, 2, 1.
Agree.
Ooh, 2 agrees. Crispy.
Yeah, the example that I think of is all of these productivity tools nowadays have like do not disturb built in, because all they do is disrupt people within their flow of work. And so even I'm famous for having my do not disturb on my phone on all the time because I don't like being bothered because it distracts me from what I'm doing. I think that people are constantly losing attention as more things are introduced into their life, and that it results in us not putting the right weight or efforts into the things that matter the most, which are, sales productivity.
Excellent. Matt?
We are wired to and desire to be distracted. It hits our brain in certain ways that makes us, and that's what I call the attention economy. Like we're always vying for each other's attention. And so sales productivity, it makes us more productive, like if in isolation, but aggregated together, it just wastes our time. And so that's like, I think one of the most effective things to do as a sales is like, you need to block your time off, do it in chunks, and do one activity for one period of time, or you will get distracted, period. And so, and like, if you don't do that, I don't think you can actually do prospecting. At least I can't. There's no functional way I can do prospecting unless I just book a time off and go dark.
Congrats to neither of you for plugging Supered. Anyway.
100% forgot about this. Supered's a great way to do all your deal management without losing the flow of work. You just click, you just get on Supered and you go pop, 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 get to 0 and you're done. Then you focus on another.
Use some editing magic to put that at the beginning of his answer. Yeah.
we need to move that around in the finished clip. Let it be written, let it be done.
Here's what I found, being back in like end user land, is usage of the CRM is more important than ever, and people want the easiest way to manage their workflow. And the thing that I found is that Supered is the best possible way to do that. So when it comes to sales productivity, measuring the right things, ensuring the right actions, you know the answer.
Love that. Love it a lot. Matt?
That was better than anything I could say. I'm just going to hold up. Stay awesome. Keep doing it big and stay super. Adios, everybody.
Is that crocheted? That's awesome.